where people are from. Looks like we've got representation from New Jersey. It's good to see that. I'm coming in from Nashville or outside Nashville, Tennessee. But go ahead and put in the chat where you're from if you're interested, and people can see your name and you can show us that you know how to use the chat. And we'll get started in just a minute when everybody shows up. Hey, Christy.
Hey, Etienne.
Have you ever seen that video of if the real world were like virtual world in a conference room where people just immediately pop up? It's what I thought of when you popped up. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Ed will be here at any moment, I'm sure. And it looks like we have a lot of people from all over the world: France, Europe, Denmark, Canada, Missouri. Not trying to equate any one of these geographies, but so cool to see people from
Awesome.
places.
Yeah, welcome everyone.
Salt Lake City. We'll be there later this year for our True Quality Roadshow. So if you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out. Maybe I'll put a link in the show. In the show. I'm getting distracted. A link in the chat so that you can find that. Missouri might be in an international location, Eric. But hey, Ed, how are you doing?
Good, good.
Okay, we're 1 minute after. People are already telling us where they're from in the chat. So, but I think we might have a quorum. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, I'm just looking at the number of people who showed up. There's still a lot of people coming in. So maybe we'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds. So we don't leave anyone behind. Also, if you think to, while we're going throughout, another question besides where you're from is if there is a topic you would love for us to cover in the future, whether Christy, Ed, or anyone else, feel free to put that in the chat. We'd love to hear it. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Key Expectations for ISO 14971 Compliance with Implementation of the Quality Management System Regulation, QMSR. My name is Etienne Nichols. I'm a medical device guru here at Greenlight Guru. I'll be the moderator for today's event. Today's webinar is going to run for about 90 minutes in total. We want to hear from you. And I love seeing the chat already blowing up. But on the right side of the screen, most of you have found the chat, but there are a few other tabs as well. The chat tab is where you can engage with the other attendees, post general comments. We ask that you play nicely. The Q&A tab is where you can ask questions that you want our presenter to answer during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. We will be sharing the full recording and slides with all registrants after the webinar, so keep an eye out for that. That will be coming in an email from us later on. I would like to share a few words about Greenlight Guru. So maybe if we go to the next slide, Christy, and why we put on these free training sessions. Improving the quality of life for our customers and their patients is our mission here at Greenlight Guru. It's likely a similar mission to many of you joining us today. We're constantly looking for ways to fulfill that mission, whether that's through hosting these free webinars, partnering with world-class medical device experts like today's presenters, or through our award-winning cloud-based solutions. At Greenlight Guru, our focus is moving medtech forward. Our solutions are designed to help streamline your processes so you can navigate the regulatory hurdles and succeed in the market. Our MedTech suite provides quality management, product development, and clinical data management solutions, along with high-quality training and education designed exclusively for medical device companies. So if you're interested in seeing why over 1,100, and I actually heard this morning that it's 1,200 of the world's leading medtech companies trust Greenlight Guru, head over to www.greenlight.guru after today's presentations, and you can get a personalized demo. All right, let me give you a proper introduction to our presenters. Ed and Christy, I'm told, met years ago and immediately bonded over a mutual love of medical device risk management. Ed, who is considered a forefather of medical device risk management, has been on the US and international committees for ISO 14971 for years and was deeply involved in the creation of ISO 14971 2019 and ISO 24971 2020, who if you ever see him comment on LinkedIn, you will see his recommendation for 24971, which I strongly recommend in as well. Christy, who is new to the US committee, advocates for the voice of the startup within the organization. Ed teaches courses for AMI, AAMI, and consults directly with companies in quality and risk management. Christy is a partner at an advisory firm called Product, PRODCT, and works with startups and small companies to establish and implement risk management processes and quality systems. Both love to teach. They both have the heart of a teacher. They talk for hours each week about risk management. So if you're here to nerd out about risk, you're in the right place. We welcome you. And with that, I'll let you take it away, Ed and Christy.
All right, let me figure out. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for being here today, and we chose to use some terminology on the screen there to cover hopefully all the audience that's here. But since we've got so many, up near 2,000 or so possible, we wanted to make sure we covered most of the languages people might recognize. So thank you. We appreciate your attendance today.
All right. I know most everyone here is probably eating lunch, working on other stuff, multitasking, half listening. So we get it. Everyone's busy working on important stuff. If you learn anything today, these are your takeaways. So listen up for a minute. The new QMSR that was just released from the FDA in February includes a lot of things about risk management. If you're going to comply with QMSR, you need to practice risk management. The FDA tells us that complying with ISO 14971 specifically for risk management is a very good idea. They use some interesting language we'll get into in a little bit, but the takeaway is set your North Star on ISO 14971 if you want to comply with QMSR. The FDA has also told us in releasing the new QMSR that your quality system is much more than just your SOPs. It's also behaviors and attitudes. So expect to put some more emphasis on that if you're going to comply. And then also a common thing we see and a way that you can prepare yourself. Your risk management processes need to touch the whole life cycle of the device. If you just have an FMEA, you're behind. You have work to do. It's not enough anymore to complete your risk management file. But we'll show you some strategies and you can do it. It's not so bad.
Well, we have a cast of characters here. You can see our pictures on the left side of the screen. And we've got an introduction coming up, the history of the standards. We're going to do a little risk buzz and some QMSR comments that the FDA released when the Federal Register announcement came out that are very important to read. I can't emphasize that enough. And we're going to talk a little bit about life cycle risk management because it's more than just design development. And then we want to mention the little guys. The medical device industry, if you look at it, it's not the big people. The largest amount of players in the medical device industry are small companies. The average is 35 employees in the company, in companies in the medical device industry. So there's a whole lot of people out there that are smaller size. And then we'll close it up with some thoughts and proceed into the Q&A session. And we hope you have lots of questions. And Etienne is going to make sure that if there's an appropriate question at the time, he'll interrupt us and bring it up. So thank you. I appreciate that. I've got 23 years in risk management. Well, I guess this is a 24th year now. We have been in the medical device industry since 1988. So I got some years in that. And then before that, I worked in quality and numerical control. And so I've been around a long time. I'm an old guy.
Stop it.
I do a lot of advisor and training work. I've written some articles and books and mentioned the risk management committee. So, Christy.
You can see this is the first time that we actually met in person. It was like so exciting and fun to finally meet my good friend. I've got over a decade in medical device risk management also. My jam is really small companies, emerging entrepreneurs. setting up quality systems and risk management files, really teaching and coaching my team so that they understand the spirit of risk management. Why do we do it? What if we don't? Understanding that funding and resources are always strapped. I've authored a couple of book chapters. The most recent, there's a NIH pandemic response book that just got released, just got published this week. So check that out. Wrote a chapter on risk management for that. And then I'm like Etienne said, new to the technical committee for medical device risk management, but so excited to jump into it.
So the players here that we're going to discuss, first is 21 CFR Part 820, the QMSR, which will be the new version on the 2nd of February in 2026. So right now we're still operating under 21 CFR 820, 1996. So it's been a long time that this particular version has been in effect. In the meantime, we've got 13485, which is the 2016 version. Well, it came out at the same time as the original 820. It's been revised twice, so it's more up to date than 820 current version is. And then we'll have 14971 2019, which of course that's in its third edition also. So both 1345 and 14971 have been revised twice since their original edition. And that'll feed right into the next slide. So 21 CFR 820 is harmonizing with 1345 because the FDA looked at what was happening in the revisions of 1345, of which they are strong participants, by the way. And they decided, well, they've already done all the revision work, so we'll just copy what they've done and use that. And largely, that's what they have done, is they've taken what's in 1345 with a few modifications, which are important to know. And now that will become the Quality Management System Regulation 21 CFR 820, and which would be the 2026 version. And we've got a link here on this slide, so you can download the Federal Register copy, which I insist is important you do, because it has all the comments in the front. The regulation's actually only 3 pages in this printout of 33 pages. So there's 30 pages of information to help you along the way. So download that after the show. Wait till we talk and then download it.
But it's really, it's very readable. It's understandable. It's plain English. It's very easy to read. So don't be intimidated by it. The regulations are made for us.
Now, I started the history part, but let's look at it a little bit more closely. Is we have the 1990s, which is when the changes came about. The FDA had learned over time that many of the recalls that had happened were due to design issues. So they wanted to change the regulation. Well, to do that, they had to get the law changed. So in 1990, the permission came from Congress, and a change in the Safe Medical Device Act to allow them to implement the new 21 CFR Part 820. So that was a revision from the 1978 version to 1996. And it now covers design in that edition. So it's been in effect since 1996. And you also have, I think it's 200 comment categories in the preamble to the regulation, which nobody has looked at, which give you all the reasons and the thinking that the FDA had at the time when they released it. And then in 1999, they released a guide for inspection, which was the QSIT, and that was intended to give the investigators in the field guidance on how to inspect medical devices, because at that point, a investigator for the FDA could go anywhere. One of my first inspections was by a lady in Charleston, South Carolina. The favorite thing she inspected was shrimp boats. So she did all kinds of stuff, foods and devices and drugs. And so they did it all. So they published a guide to help them when they came to devices. There will be a new one of these published, hopefully before the release of the or the implementation of the new QMSR. So you can see the risk management standards evolution. There was an attempt in 1998 to create a risk analysis standard, and then which was based on a European standard. And then they decided, no, we'll throw that away and we'll start over. And now 14971-2000 was published, which is the complete process. They were going to publish a lot of dash documents, dash 1, dash 2, dash 3. Said, no, let's do it all in one. So then in 2007, we updated again based upon the comments that came from industry. And they were all about, give us more information. So as a result of that, we developed the guidance document, and 24971 came out the first time in 2013. It's not mentioned there, but it's the 2020 version. It's essential that you have that in your hands when you're going to implement 14971. And then there's other standards, both the FDA regulation and 14971 were actually based upon ISO 9001, the 1993 version. That's where we got the construction that you see in the 820, the different elements that are there that are not really connected, where in the current version of 1345 is a process model. They changed from the original elements model of 9001 into a process model that we see today, which is much easier to use. So 1345 and 820 were published along the same lines, but you notice the revisions that occurred in 1345. Okay.
All right. So Ed, you mentioned the ISO TR, the technical report 24971.
Yes.
Write it down if you don't have it. I actually spend most of my time studying in 24971. 14971 is beautiful, but 24971 is delicious. It's you can consume it and apply it, and it's like really like the summation of decades of amazing people's experiences in risk management. It's like all right there for you. So thank you, Ed, for your work on that technical report and others. It's amazing. So get it.
And thank you both. I have a quick question from the audience because there was a question about ISO 1345 2016 plus A11 2021. Do you want to have a comment on that?
I can take that. That is the European harmonized version. The requirements in that standard are identical to ISO 13485. The difference is the A11, which is a guide for implementation in the medical device regulation and the IVDR in Europe. It only applies to Europe. But if you've got a copy of that and you're happy with it, all you need to worry about are the 8 clauses in 1345, because those are the same 8 clauses as in the ISO 1345 2016 version we mentioned here. So you want to get familiar with 14971 2019 if you're going to comply with the QMSR today. The QMSR incorporates 1345 by reference. What does that mean? Well, because 1345 is a copyrighted ISO document, the FDA could not incorporate that word by word in the law, because that would be a violation of the copyrights, because if it's incorporated in the regulation, it would have to be available for free to all the manufacturers, anybody that requested it. So by reference means you can go and in the QMSR publication in the Federal Register, it refers you to a website you can go to and you can read 13485. You just can't print or copy or save that document. You can read it. And so the FDA has made it available for you to look at. But most companies may have copies of that already or access to it. So the interesting thing is, as you go through the Federal Register document, explains why and what is different from 1345 and the QMSR, because there are a few key points that we'll talk about a little bit later that are a little bit different. One of the discussions I was involved in on the committee and I'm on the U.S. National Committee for 1345 also. So when 1345 was being revised from the 14971 committee, we wanted 14971 to be a normative reference. But the 13485 committee says, no, we can't do that, because while we talk about risk definition directly from 14971 in 1345, we also added a note in the clarification of concepts up front that says that we mean the definition of 14971, because it writes it out by word, but then it adds regulatory risk. And because they include regulatory risk in 1345, they didn't feel as though they could make 14971 a normative reference, because that would leave out regulatory risk from the process. So it's kind of a I don't know, clinky way of getting to the fact that risk management is embedded thoroughly from one end to the other in 1345. But don't forget any place you encounter regulatory risk. One of those places is in purchasing, because they want you to select your suppliers based upon risk of getting the product from them when you need it, as well as safety risk, because 14971 is a safety risk standard, a product safety standard. And we avoided business risk, project risk, all the other risks that are out there. There's actually 17 definitions of the word risk in the Cambridge English Dictionary. None of those are the one that's in 14971. So there's 18 out there at least. So it's kind of an interesting discussion, but believe me, 14971 is embedded in 1345 all over the place, and our friends from the FDA are being trained on 14971. There's been a training program at FDA in place since the initial announcement that they had proposed a new QMSR. They've started training FDA personnel, both, now this is interesting too, pre-market and post-market. So the people doing your inspections and the people that are reviewing your submissions are all learning both 1345 and 14971. Now, MedCon 2023, the people that were writing the QMSR attended that. The FDA heavily participates in MedCon, and they discussed risk throughout their presentations, telling us, kind of giving us a little hint that we needed to pay attention. Recent presentations after the release of it, the AMI Nexus conference, it was like, maybe 10 days after the release or something like that, they discussed the QMSR and they discussed risk in there. So they continued to emphasize the fact that risk management is a key part of the QMSR. It's been in warning letters too that you're starting to see the term risk show up. So it's everywhere.
Hey, Ed, quick question that I thought might be relevant. Joshua asked if you know how the FDA is being trained on 14971, if it's internal or external experts. Any insight?
I've got a whole lot of insight to that. Some of it I can't talk about.
Understood.
But believe me that it's been a big program. They actually have 3 courses that the people are going through, and that's about all I can say.
I think the question behind the question would probably be, I would assume, Josh, I don't mean to speak for Joshua, but he would like to have the same understanding of 14971 as whatever FDA is being trained to, I would guess. So maybe that's the question.
And that is already out there. That training is available through some experts that provide that. It's the same thing that industry is getting.
Okay.
And one of the rationales for utilization of 1345 from the FDA's presentation at MedCon, and Keisha Thomas and Karen Maisley Joseph, who are 2 of the key people that authored this. And I know that they attended some of the training already too. And they modernized the QMS principles. I mentioned the fact that it's been updated. Greater integration of risk management activities is the thing that really caught their eye and pulled them into this. And then globally harmonized requirements. 1345 is used all over the world for quality system requirements. And we mentioned just a moment ago in that question about medical device regulation in the IVDR, they're using 1345 in Europe. So why aren't we? Well, now we will be. And most of the people that are working globally, most of our manufacturers in our industry already are having to comply with 1345 because Japan and Australia and Brazil and a lot of the key players in this arena from regulatory are already using it. So they also, when they were developing this, when it was first announced in 2018, they were going to shift to, or thinking about shifting to 1345. They researched and found that there was about 95% the same between 820 and 1345. Organization was different. Some of the terminology was a little bit different. So they had decided already, based upon that it would be relatively easy for industry to move into 13485. Next slide. When the QMSR was released, let me talk about this. When the QSR was released, it was such a big issue with the industry. There were 10,000 comments received by the FDA.
Back in
1996. And there were 10,000 comments received because people were really concerned about the big shift, including design controls. In the current QMSR, there are 83 comments. So that tells me, from my perspective, that industry is already using 1345. They're comfortable with 1345. So this is not going to be a big deal. Well, pay attention, because there are some differences and there are some things you're going to have to pay attention to here that make it slightly different in the US as opposed to rest of world. But if you're doing MDSAP audits, you'll already be aware of the fact that in the MDSAP is based on 1345, but there are different questions asked based upon what countries you sell in, because there are slight difference in the regulation. That same thing is going to happen in the US. when the QMSR becomes effective, there will be some questions that are asked for the U.S. market, if you deal in the U.S. market, to show you the differences between 1345 and the FDA regulation. So there are answers about that in this 83 comments that are in the new Federal Register version. You can learn so much from reading these and understanding. I've learned a lot. I've got mine highlighted all over the place. So get it and use that link that we provided. Get that printed copy because it's an easier to use. There's one version that's 33 pages, the Federal Register version. There's another version, if you do a Google search online, that will give you a 77-page version. That's hard to read.
But the point is, it's easy to understand, even if you intend to have some kind of advisor or someone else on your team help you implement these changes. Read it for yourself if you work in industry. It's important to know what the spirit is and what's the source. So really, the QMSR, the comments are really overflowing with references to risk. There's 4 that we want to talk through with you today that are really relevant, that we've learned a lot from. The first is about quality culture. So I'm going to read what text is written here. This is actual text that the FDA wrote in their response to the comments. And the FDA says, we expect medical device manufacturers led by individuals with executive responsibilities to embrace a culture of quality as a key component in safe and effective medical devices. And then they go on to tell us a culture of quality meets regulatory requirements through a set of behaviors, attitudes, activities, and processes. This was so interesting for me to see. And I thought, which behaviors and attitudes are they talking about? And what does it have to do with risk management? So we wanted to talk with you all today about what does a quality culture mean, and what does it look like? What is the FDA talking about? The quality culture has to start from the top. So it has to begin from top management, the top person or people involved in an organization, and all the people that work, kind of filtering down from there. So what this could look like, and it's going to look different at every organization, but what this could look like is, you're in a team meeting with your executive management. Those executives should encourage curiosity, question asking, bring the whole team together. Remember, I work with small teams. So if you work, at a 20,000 person company, this might look slightly different, but the spirit's the same. Right? Bring as much of the team together as you can to collaborate to create your quality policy and objectives together. It shouldn't just be something that your quality manager comes up with and tries to push. It should come from the top down. It should be a collaborative experience. In the middle of conversations, hey, Etienne, what do you think about this from a quality perspective? Or let's see what Ed thinks about this from a risk perspective. Are we not thinking about anything with this design change or this manufacturing adjustment? But that voice, even just inviting in quality and risk perspective, goes a long way to establish it as something that's important for the rest of the organization. We've also seen a really cool results when patients and users themselves who have been impacted by a device are invited in to talk to the team. Because then you think about, when you're making design changes, you think about that person, your engineers, your scientists, your manufacturing staff, your professional staff. Everyone will kind of keep that person in the back of their mind, and the safety of the device in their mind. Providing resources for quality and risk. It's one thing to talk about how it's important. It's another thing to put your money where your mouth is and actually staff the appropriate resources for quality and risk. I know this is really tough in startups and for small companies. So there's lots of different ways that you can cross-train, have people come help, have advisors coach and mentor more junior members of your team, which sometimes more affordable. There's lots of things you can do, but it's got to be It's got to come from the top. And then the last is to lead with empathy. So understand that not everyone on the team is going to be as excited about quality or risk management. I don't understand how you can not be excited about it. I'm just kidding. But the point is to recognize that you're going to have a gamut of different perspectives, different hesitations and experiences when it comes to implementing quality and risk, and understanding where the other person might be coming from and inviting in what their hesitations are from the beginning can be very helpful.
Christy, I've got a couple examples here. The first one, the reason we're here is about patience, right? I had a client that manufactured AEDs, and quarterly they would bring in a patient that had been saved by one of their products, and they gave a presentation to all employees. Everybody came in the room and learned what their product had done. So it's trying to link you to the patient and making sure, and AED is a risky product. That's shocking people. It's giving them an electrical shock. And it's also being done by people that have no idea what they're doing. So how do we have a user interface that guides those people to be able to, and I actually saw one of these in action in Dallas airport once. It was amazing. But the idea is we're here for the patient. We need to make safe products and effective products. And the FDA is all about safety and effectiveness. And that's what they're checking your products for. The other example is a company that's been in the news of late, whose quality culture had kind of gone away. They had one years ago. And now you'll see in the news right now a lot about a company by the name of Boeing. And their culture had drifted away from quality and safety. And now they're trying to get it back. And they're going to have a lot of difficulty in getting there because it's such a big company. And, moving a ship like that, a big ship, gosh, that's also something that is timely too. Moving a big ship so it doesn't hit the bridge. We got to get our top management involved and participating and leading us in a quality effort, and bringing those patients in to talk to them and the users, the doctors. If you're an intuitive surgical robot manufacturer, your doc is a big part of that product. So you've got to bring all these people in and get their input to help the team go in the right direction. So I'll stop with that.
So there's lots of great ways to implement the quality and risk culture at your company. We'd like to invite you. Please put in the chat ideas that you have, what's worked in your organization. We do all kinds of things at Product that I think help this. We do things like take executive teams and the whole scientific staff out for a hike while we talk about quality, and we do all kinds of, we try and think outside the box, but share some of your experiences too, and please, we'd love to learn from you as well.
Raleigh did put in the chat about Boeing drift starting in 1997 after a merger with McDonnell Douglas. I think that is an interesting point he makes about how M&A are prime times when both things can go wrong and when you can think critically. I thought that was an interesting point.
I went through 4 of those. I know about that. I know about one that was very successful.
All right, Ed, you want to talk us through the comment about definitions?
Oh, absolutely, because definitions are key. I mentioned the fact that there's 18 definitions for the word risk. Being able to understand and communicate with people, we have to understand the terminology we're using. So the definition of risk is the probability of occurrence of harm and the severity of harm, the combination of those two. Okay, so that's different from risk all over the place. And if you're talking to somebody that is not familiar with 14971 and that definition, then they may misunderstand what you're trying, the message you're trying to send. So we need to make sure at the beginning that everybody's on the same page with risk. I'll give you an example there for something entirely different. Although it's a standards committee, we argued for an hour and a half over whether the word should be a or the in one of the standards. And it was all about the definition of the terms, but it was the English definition because standards are written using British English, or the Queen's English, as they like to say at the time. Of course, it's the King's English now. But using the right terminology, being able to understand what we're talking about. And so what the FDA points out here in comment 31 is that we do not believe that a definition for risk unique to the QMSR is necessary and are retaining the unmodified definition of the ISO 1345. Well, guess what? That combination of probability of occurrence of harm and the severity of harm is the definition from 14971. That's where 1345 got the definition for risk management, and for life cycle. All three of those came directly from 14971. So when you see the individual word risk, they're talking about this definition. If you see risk-based approach, which is in the standard, it's this risk part of it, but also we need to make sure that when we're selecting a supplier, that we're looking at that continued probability of occurrence of harm and the severity of harm as it relates to the product we're trying to buy. But also, the FDA is saying you also need to make sure that you'll be able to get the product that you need on time. That's a concern in the pharmaceutical industry, I know. And that everything that you do is based upon that safety being and effectiveness of that product when it gets to the customer.
Thank you, Ed.
Yes, go ahead.
There was one question or a request for a comment from Eric Henry actually on if you can comment on how ISO 13485 also includes compliance in its reference to risk when it says when the term risk is used, the application of the term within the scope of this standard pertains to safety and performance requirements or meeting applicable regulatory requirements. Can you comment on that?
Yes, that's kind of an interesting comment. And Eric, I don't have I do have my ISO practical guide. Okay, there is a 200-page guidance document here that our good friends from the Standards Committee wrote, which is kind of like their version of 24971, only it's 200 pages. And I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but I know they talked about it in there. And I'm going to have to play it off right now because I can't get to the page quick enough.
No, that's fine. I can't tell you how many times people have referred me to a book when I ask questions, so I think you're fair for that.
Yes. And here it's on page 14 of my printed copy. It talks about use of the term in the context of safety and performance of the medical device and meeting applicable regulatory requirements is not to be confused with financial risk or risk to business performance. The revisions incorporate the concept of risk-based approaches to establish, implement, maintain, and improve the QMS. The risk to the effective and compliant operation of the QMS should be understood. In identifying risks and opportunities, your organization should focus on preventing or reducing undesired effects through risk reduction or preventive actions. This risk-based approach should apply to all processes required for your QMS. So there's the definitive answer to that question, I think.
Okay.
Thanks for the questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Any more
Thank
right
you.
now, Etienne?
Not right now. I'm getting a link to the handbook. Someone asked what you were referring to, so I'm trying to get that to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Someone beat me.
gorgeous.
available for purchase from ISO. Okay.
Great.
Am I doing this one, Christy?
Yeah, it's all you.
I got lost. Aside from clause 3 of ISO 9000, FDA does not, in this rulemaking, incorporate ISO 14971 or any other standards referenced by or listed as a source in 1345, but acknowledges that these other standards may be helpful in understanding the application of 1345. What they're saying there, ISO 9000, clause 3 only, not the rest of ISO 9000, but only clause 3, has definitions that 1345 cited. So if you're going to use the 1345, you have to look at the definitions in clause 3 of 9000. So there's that there. But they did not really call out any other standards within the text of 1345 except in one place. There's a note in 7.1, and notes are not enforceable. They're information. It says, for further information, see ISO 14971. That's the only place that 14971 shows up in the text, other than those 3 definitions I mentioned, which come from 14971. So it uses risk and risk management throughout the standard, but it doesn't mention 14971 except for more information.
So if you know the FDA sometimes tells you in direct English what they want you to know, and sometimes they use roundabout language. Ed, tell us about optional FDA guidance documents.
Optional guidance documents are sort of optional.
They're not. Everyone knows
But-
they're not optional. They're
but
there. You have to comply with them.
That's FDA's thinking at the time when that guidance is released. So you better pay attention to it. And that optional guidance document, the recognized standards under the FDA's recognized standards list include one called 14971. It's the only recognized standard for medical device risk management, not only at the FDA, but anywhere else in the world. The British Standards Institute identified it in their standards organization as being the state-of-the-art medical device risk management standard. So it's not only recognized, but it's also state-of-the-art. So as we understand state-of-the-art, you should be operating at state-of-the-art, and that means you don't have any other choices.
Okay, so the question then is, if you're new to all this, sounds like it's a good idea to embrace ISO 14971. FDA's told us it's a good idea. We're going to do it. What does it tell me to do? If you're new to the standard, we just wanted to take a minute and give you a high level. A lot of people are familiar with an FMEA. This is slightly different. We kind of think about it like storytelling. So when you look at risks from the lens that 14971 tells us to look at them, first identify what's the risk scenario, then ask what has to happen for a harm to occur. And you think about how bad is it? How likely is it? Is that acceptable? If not, what are we going to do to keep it from happening? Then you ask, did we implement the control? You check, did that control actually control the risk? And then you kind of step back and go, did we do enough? 14971, 24971, there's a lot of text there, but it's really very simple. It's storytelling, and it's the same kind of risk that you do in your everyday life all day. That's very comfortable and common. When you're deciding whether you're going to buckle up, you think about how likely is it I'm going to get hit and launch through the windshield. you make that assessment. You put your design control over your lap and you plug it in. So don't be scared off. If you don't know anything about 14971, get it, read it. It's not that long. 24971 is broken up into all these different sections, super easy to digest. Get some training, we can walk you through it. But the point is, you can do this.
Okay, now let's go on to some more comments that FDA had for us so we can understand their direction. Comment 19 talks about integration of risk management principles throughout 1345 does not represent a shift in philosophy. The explicit integration of risk management throughout the clauses of 1345 more explicitly establishes a requirement for risk management to occur throughout the QMS and should help industry develop a more effective listen to this, total product lifecycle risk management system. Once you have started developing a product, your risk management does not end until the last one is disposed of in the field. You're going to be constantly looking at risk management throughout that life cycle. It's going to be something that you got to pay attention to.
So 1345, we'll walk more in depth through all of these, but there are some big categories that 1345 points you to with respect to risk management. How you build your overall QMS, many parts of product realization, meaning research all the way through design and development, transfer to manufacturing. There's human resources impact into risk, purchasing, supplier management, and then monitoring and measurement. And at first glance, when you look at it, when you think, I've got to deal with 1345 and QMSR and 14971, and they all have different impacts with each other, and I need this here, it feels complicated. So Ed put together. Go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead, Christy.
So this is an intersections of ISO 1345 and ISO 14971 diagram. We don't expect you to really kind of see what's going on here at this point. There's 2 articles that Ed and I have published with the links that you can follow up on later. But you can see risk management is in pink. Design development activities are green. Manufacturing processes are in yellow, and they're all very intertwined with each other. All right, everybody got it? There's going to be a quiz now. All right, stay with us.
So think about risk management like chapters in the story of bringing a product to life, because that's really what we're doing. You know, if you think about it, the prologue, we're trying to figure out how we're going to meet this need of the users, what the intended use might be of this product and all that. And then we're gonna take that information and we're gonna design and develop a product. And once we have that done, then we're gonna transfer that product to manufacturing for them to create the product now and send it off to the users so they can actually get the benefit of this product, and hopefully without too much risk, although we know, and 14971 talks about this in the introduction, there's no such thing as a risk-free medical device. So you're always going to be doing risk management. So what we want in the post-market end is for the user to have a safe and effective product. Now, it's not going to be safe, meaning zero risk. There's some risk involved. So how do we address those risks, and how do we inform the customers about that? So we got to know the definitions. Again, these are the ones that come from 14971, and that those are the ones that are found in 1345. And so here's all the elements we mentioned there. So prologue, design your QMS based upon risk. So if you're a manufacturer of a class 1 medical device in the US, you might have a very different quality system than a manufacturer of a class 3 device. Why? Because the risk levels are much different. The requirements of the agency in the regulatory side are much different. So you have different regulatory risks to address as well as product risk. You need to consider risk in the scope and the depth of the quality management system. So 1345 in clause 4.1.2, here's one of the places where it shows up. Apply a risk-based approach to control of the appropriate processes needed for the quality management system. So here's looking at the risk of the quality management system. And then it talks about including the risk management processes in clause 7.1. Clause 7 is product realization. This is design, development, manufacturing, purchasing, and all those activities. And the organization shall document one or more processes for risk management and product realization, is what it says. Okay? So you got to have a risk management process in your quality system. So then you're going to have to, as a result of executing your process, your procedures in your quality management system, you're going to have to provide the agency with objective evidence that you have performed the activities and got successful results. That's going to require quality records. And the records shall be maintained to provide evidence of conformity to requirements and of the effective operation of the quality management system. So there's that evidence of operation of the quality management system, but that includes risk management records, which need to be accessible throughout the product lifecycle. You can't put quality or risk management records inside your design history file and then close it. As a matter of fact, design history file does not exist in 1345, and it will not exist at the FDA when the QMSR takes effect.
But it is important to note that QMSR will not take effect until 2026, February. So your firm will still be expected to comply with the existing QSR, 21 CFR Part 820, as it exists today without the QMSR up until that point. So don't pull out references to your DHR or your DMR yet, because you'll still be expected to comply with those until the changeover.
And that's some of the discussions that are hidden in these comments that we referred to in the Federal Register notice. It helps you understand what you need to do now and what you need to do after February 2nd, 2026. So the management is ultimately responsible. The whole quality system is management's responsibility. And what they have to do is provide resources, evidence of commitment to the development and implementation of the quality management system, maintenance of its effectiveness, and ensuring availability of resources. And resources is more than just people. It's money, okay? The budget to do things. It's the equipment that you need to perform the activities. The buildings you need, all those things are resources. So you need to make sure that your top management is executing that. So risk management and design requirements feed each other. So as we move into that, so we've got this little going around the circle diagram here. Risk analysis, evaluation, and control come from 14971. And control drives product requirements. Design inputs come from some of them come from 14971. Your risk control measures are design inputs. And 7.3.3c in 1345 says the outputs of risk management are design inputs. Oops. When do I have to start risk management to do that? I got to start it before design input. That's interesting.
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Yeah, so the spirit of this is really interesting because It's the first time that it's really been made explicit that risk management is not something you do once you've established your design outputs. A lot of times there's no risk management activities until here's the prototype. Then you start looking at risks from a bottom-up approach. When really risk management, you can do a lot from the top down. You work early. I'm talking to my super early teams here. You do your regulatory strategy and your risk management, your very first hazard style analysis, your risk analysis, and you're developing your design input requirements, trying to figure out what are the requirements for your device, what features does it need to have to meet expectations of all the different users. You're doing all that at the beginning. It's not just.
And as a matter of fact, if you do a clinical trial, there's a requirement in 21 CFR 812 and an ISO 14155 for doing a risk analysis. So if you're doing a feasibility clinical trial, you've already started your risk management process at that point. Clear back and feasibility. Here's one of my favorites. If your risk management file only contains an FMEA, you have work to do, because an FMEA doesn't meet all the requirements of 14971. It meets some, but not all. So you're going to have to use other tools besides just FMEA in doing your risk analysis.
FMEA is a great tool and you should use it. A lot of times I see teams use it for design, sometimes for process. But FMEAs a lot of times they're bottom up, they're not top down, they're single use, single fault. And 14971 asks us to go beyond single fault. And a lot of times that the FMEA won't go to the extent of understanding a patient harm that can come out of a specific scenario. It stops with the impact on the device itself. So it's not enough.
It also doesn't cover normal conditions. And normal conditions are when everything's working. When the device is working as designed, well, their FMEA doesn't cover. They only cover fault conditions, single fault.
Can you define single fault, Christy? There was a question in the chat about that.
Sure, single fault would be like one thing has to go wrong for the issue to be realized, for the risk to be realized, and double fault would be like two things have to happen. This has to happen, and then this has to happen, or these two things have to happen at the same time for the risk to occur.
Cool.
Okay,
Thanks.
so when you think about risk analysis, there's lots of inputs to it. So you'll have just kind of starting at the top and going around the circle. You're going to have customer needs that will go into generating risks. Once you have product on market, post-production and post-production information, maybe and actually even pre-market, you can go look these things up for a similar product. If you have a predicate or something you can point to that you're like, go look at MOD, go look at if your company has any access to any customer complaints that might be relevant. Obviously, software, AI, ML, cyber, data security, risks identified in clinical trials, use-related risks, including foreseeable misuse. A lot of those are just in normal conditions. There's no fault in those cases. Like Ed was just talking about, product safety standards, biocompatibility risk. So that's like your 60601s, electrical safety, mechanical safety, biocompatibility, anything that starts with an ISO. And then other tools. So you have FMEAs. This is where your FMEA will provide you great input into your risk analysis, anything that can cause patient harm that you identify in your PHA, a preliminary hazard analysis, a fault tree analysis. There's lots of different tools you can use to identify risks, and all those risks need to be looked at from that lens of how can this cause patient harm. And then, of course, the delicious ISO 24971 Annex A gives you a whole list of questions. If you don't know where to start, you can always start with Annex A, which just asks you questions to think about and draws forth lots of risks just from asking, could this happen? Could this happen? And if you're an in vitro diagnostic, there's this really beautiful collection in Annex H. H, right, Ed? H for happy?
Yes.
That's how I remember it. Annex H for IVDs. So check it out. If you're if you're developing an in vitro diagnostic, you got to look at it. It's gonna really help you identify risks that are unique to you.
That's a really great annex too, and you might read it just to find out a little bit about things like when you don't have the right information, and what happens if the doctor doesn't get the information they need. So there's some other things in there that are useful, but I also might point to the other tool, PHA. That's a very, very, very important tool to use at the very beginning of your process to try and collect known information, like what standards apply to your product, what kind of information is out there in that product code that the FDA has, the total product lifecycle database. You can go look and see who are the other people that have products in that product code, what kind of experience have they had, what kind of failures have occurred, what kind of recalls have occurred for that. So there's a lot of information that is available before you even get started, and PHA helps you collect that.
We also have to look at the impact of every change we make once we launch our product to our risk file. And you can't know until you really do the analysis, and then you want to be able to prove that you assess the risk. So ISO 13485 tells us the review of design and development changes shall include inputs or outputs of risk management. So you make a change, every change order, you call it an ECO or an ECN or a CO, whatever your organization calls it, should include an evaluation of the change on risk management inputs and outputs. That's not to say you necessarily need a unique entry for every single change, but you should be able to point to something and say, we thought about it, or there was no impact. All right,
So
we'll quickly go through.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
So in the manufacturing side, we need to make sure that we have looked at the different elements that apply in the quality management system regulation. 1345 7.4.1 says we need to consider proportionate to the risk when we select suppliers. Did we get the right supplier? Are they able to meet our requirements? Have they done medical device manufacturing before, or is this new to them? Those kinds of questions. We have to look at what happens if they don't meet our requirements, the suppliers. And then once we have the product coming in the door, we need to look at the verification or the incoming inspection process to make sure that we have the right product and that it does meet our requirements. How are we going to do that? There needs to be some kind of a process there in place, and that can be appropriate to the risk of the product and the supplier. And then there's process and software validation. So our manufacturing processes, like that's process validation, we have software validation that has to occur. Well, that includes the manufacturing software. So what software do we use in the manufacturing process to create the product? That has to be validated as well. So that needs to be done according to the risk. Christy?
Yeah, so changes in the manufacturing suite also need to be evaluated for impact to risk too. So if you're going to implement a new fixture or change around a manufacturing work instruction, remove steps, add more glue, add less glue, change the glue, that all needs to go into the risk management file. Same thing with nonconformities in production. These also have to be analyzed for risk. This is actually a place that I've been caught in an FDA investigation before. Every NCMR should be evaluated and dispositioned based on risk. So again, you don't need a unique entry necessarily in your risk management file. but you better be able to point to something that says and shows that you've thought through what is the risk with the definition that exists in 1345, which is from 14971. What is the risk of that particular nonconformity?
And if you didn't document it, you didn't do it.
All right, quickly we'll go through post-market. Feedback complaints is the same thing. Those should feed back into risk management. Every single complaint received should be evaluated for risk. And I've seen some warning letters come out with where the complaint is that a complaint where someone was injured was not analyzed for risk within like the first 30 days. Like, it should absolutely be part of your procedure to quickly analyze complaints for risks. And you don't have to have a unique entry, but you should have something that kind of encompasses the thing you're seeing that you can point to. This seems to be like a point that I've seen a lot of confusion and pushback. And the idea is you start risk management early in the process. You don't have a ton of complaints, before you even design your device, and you build quality into your product design, your product manufacture. And then hopefully that minimizes your complaints. But this is real, and I've seen it. I've been burned for this too in an FDA investigation.
Yeah, warning letters are great learning tools. There's a publication every Wednesday from the FDA that you can get access to. They will send you an email with the warning letters. There were 3 this week that I looked at. They were all around syringes that the company that manufactured them was tied to a couple of distributors. So the distributors got cited and the manufacturer.
Another place, corrective actions and preventive actions. You might notice 1345 doesn't use the term CAPA. They use corrective and preventive actions. Corrective actions should be, you should make sure that any corrective actions you're taking, you're analyzing for its impact to risk. And the same thing with preventive actions.
Yeah, the difference between them is a corrective action affects a product failure that's already occurred, and you're going to find the root cause and fix it. There's another term called correction where you just fix it. The third one, preventive actions, the problem hasn't occurred yet, but maybe your process is drifting towards the limits and you need to decide, is there some fix I need to take? So they separate those in 1345, and the CAPA thing is going to go away in the device world eventually.
All right, so we presented a lot of information. Where do you start? If you have a QMS already, you can conduct a gap analysis for compliance with 1345 that's appropriate for your product and your company. You don't need a fully compliant 1345 quality system if you're new, if you're a small startup, you're early in the process. Where risk is referenced in 1345, make sure your processes pull in 14971. So you're writing a supplier management SOP, start with 1345 and go dig up what it says. What are the requirements? And then go to 14971. What are the requirements? If you don't have a QMS, just give up and go home. Just kidding. All right, if you're pre-market, you don't need all of this right now. So it's okay. You can start by creating a risk analysis as you build your product requirements. That's the very first thing you do. You're going to update these a lot. You don't even need to rev control them for a while. Just create them. It doesn't even have to be pretty or fully complete. Just start with something and create your risk analysis. As you build each module of your QMS, then you go back and update things and make them stronger. I'm a fan of create documentation early and iterate it often. It creates stronger artifacts in the end. So don't be afraid to not know how to do something in its entirety. Just create it.
Retrospectively, is a big problem. To have to go back and what were they thinking when they did this? And trying to document that is a really painful situation. I was working with a group last week that's the position they're in. Their product wasn't regulated. Now it is regulated, but because it's been around a long time, they have to go back and recreate stuff, and they're having a very difficult time to try to develop a DHF for this product. So the more documentation you're able to do, as Christy said early on, the better off you'll be.
And if it feels heavy and scary, it's okay. It is. We've been there. You do a little bit at a time, and it's not so bad. Get yourself a copy of the ISO TR 24971, the 2020 version, to help you. It's a really great resource. And remember, risk management is in every phase of your design. So if you think, oh, I'm only in research, or I'm just writing my design inputs, or I'm only in testing, I don't need to do risk management yet. Remember, there's things for you to do for risk management in every single one of these phases. And please encourage your whole team to come together. Risk management is for everyone. It's not just for the quality person. It's not just for your risk person. Everyone's job should have a little tiny touch, or sometimes a big touch, in risk management.
It's a team activity. You can't do it with one person alone or one function alone. It's not just engineering. It's also the medical people that you have, the manufacturing, the quality, the whole organization. Even, I will suggest this, you may need to involve your product liability attorneys to find out what's going on, your insurance provider. Insurance companies that provide your product liability insurance have a great deal of information about what's going on outside in the liability world. What kind of companies have had problems? What kind of problems have they had? And we used to get input from them. It was very helpful in making sure that we had covered all the bases in advance.
All right, so just to recap, you need to practice risk management to comply with the new QMSR. FDA tells us compliance is a really good idea, so I would choose to do it. I'll be choosing to comply. Remember your quality system. It's more than your SOPs. We often think of it as just processes and documents. It's really behaviors and attitudes too, and that starts at the top, but it's everybody's job to create that atmosphere that's friendly towards quality and risk. And then remember, your risk management process needs to touch the whole life cycle. If you have an FMEA, that's something better than nothing, but you have more work to do. And you can do it. This is all very easily understandable and digestible, and we can help. So reach out if you have questions. Please ask questions in the chat, or if we don't get to them, please email us. We've got our contact information here, and we'll try and get back to everyone with answers to all your questions.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for going through all that. There are tons of questions, so I'm trying to prioritize them to a certain degree. Let me see here. Salvador asked, what will happen to existing risk management documentation? Will it need to be updated or remediated to fit the new ruling? And I suppose it depends on what it is now, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will start out. If you're following 14971 now, you probably don't need to do anything. It should be just fine. So that's my recommendation. If you're not following 14971, then go to TR 24971, that document we keep referring to, because there is an annex in there which talks about, let me find it real quick. It's annex. I'm reading it and it's not jumping out at me. For products that have been developed with, oh, there it is, Annex G. Annex G has a process if your product hasn't been developed following 14971, what do I need to do? And that will provide the answer to that question, I think.
Okay. Thank you so much. Green Lauren asks, do you guys have a recommended way to document this storytelling? This came up when you were talking about how 14971 is a bit of a storytelling approach to risk management, or a recommended tool to use.
Yes, there are many tools you can use. Greenlight Guru has a tool built into their software. They have a risk analysis tool that's brand new. Well, they've had a tool for a long time. They have a new version of it out, so check it out. If you're a small company and you just want to get started, use whatever tool you have access to that feels right. You can use a spreadsheet or Jira or a Word document. Something is better than nothing, and all of that kind of prepares you to when you can maybe use a tool that's a little bit more sophisticated.
And I know you probably felt a little baited with the tool part, but the other part, the first part of the question also. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I'll give you another document. There is a GHTF guidance document on risk management. It's available from the imdrf.org website for free. It's a little bit dated. It's a 2005 document, but it has an Annex C, a method for documenting risk management activities. I wrote an article in 2015, which kind of updated it. It was in Amy publication, which I can't find anymore. But if somebody has a particular question about that, I can talk more if they'll email me. But that GHTF document, 2 weeks ago, the IMDRF meeting in Washington, D.C., they indicated that document is on the agenda for updating. So there will be a new IMDRF version of the risk management guidance document that GHTF did back in 2005.
Okay. And is that the document that has, you said Annex C?
Yeah, Annex C has a
summary
template in the back on how to document.
Okay. I think I found it. Hopefully I gave the right link. Forgive me, guys, if it's a different one, but check the chat for that link. Okay. Let's see here. I prioritized a few others. So this one, you touched on this, and maybe you answered it completely, but Nam asked the question, what are the biggest gaps that need to be addressed if an organization has used FMEA approach to risk management in the past? And I suppose it kind of touches on the question you previously answered if you're not using 14971, but
it's a long description. I've posted on LinkedIn before about it. It's also been posted on the RAPS forum. There's a guy on there that has done a great job on it. If you are a member of the medical device risk management group on LinkedIn, it's been discussed there, but it will take more time than we have here.
Yeah. All right. How about this question from Al? What risk can you have from normal operation? This was when we were talking about single fault, double fault, and also the no fault conditions. The only risk you can think of is the product does not meet the intended use. What are some additional thoughts?
It's a lot of things are based on human factors. Operator hits the buttons in the wrong sequence. Operator fails to do something the right way. They forget how they're supposed to do something, so they do the best guess. So the product is working the way it's supposed to, but that human user interface there is where a lot of those problems crop up, and it's based upon what we know in advance. The human factors engineers know about all these things, and they can help you address those in your risk management activities. And risk 62366 and 14971 are intertwined. They're interconnected. So there's an annex in the back. I think it's Annex A that shows how you you interconnect usability engineering / human factors and risk management.
My favorite phrase is reasonably foreseeable misuse.
Yes.
If anyone's ever used a screwdriver, I'm sure you can imagine. Okay. And painted. But anyway, okay. Trying to think of one more question. There was a question about P1, P2. I
Ooh.
wondered if you wanted to touch on that.
P1 and P2 were invented to explain why that the probability of a fault occurring is not the same as the probability of harm occurring. And that was intended to be just an explanation of why. And again, 24971 has a great description in it. I think it's around, I don't know where it is in there. There's a great diagram that talks about the fact that if a failure occurs, you can have multiple harms occur. It could be a no harm. It could be a bruise, a broken bone, or death. Okay, you have to explore all of those. And what's the probability of each of those occurring, and what's the severity, and then it all comes together. But the diagram was in the new version of 24971 was a great improvement over the old because it just looked at single harm occurring. But now they've expanded it, and so there's steps that you start out. We have a failure which caused a hazard. So a hazard has occurred. The next thing that has to happen is people have to be exposed to the hazard. Now, if there's guards and different safety measures that are in place, the probability of harm occurring is a little bit lower unless they violate the guard or the guard is broken or something like that. Then the next thing is if the person's exposed, then what can happen? Well, it might not hurt them. Okay, if I have an electrical hazard, I might not get a shock, or I might get a shock and just it causes my muscle to retract and jump off of it, so nothing has happened except a little tingling. And then maybe it causes a burn on the skin, or in the worst case, somebody dies from it. All those are possible. What's the probability of each one of those occurring from that single exposure? So it's
a great tool. If that's confusing to you, if you're like brand new to risk management and you're working on a product and P1 and P2 it seems overwhelming, forget about it for now. All you have to do is use one probability, and that's the probability that your hazardous situation actually leads to a harm, and you can keep it simple. A lot of times P1 and P2 I find with IVDs it's more useful, but again, totally optional. If you get it and you like it and you want to apply it, do it. There's a lot of great information in 24971. If it's confusing to you and it makes you want to like run for the hills, then just don't do it.
And it's 5.4.7 in 24971. I got my trusty, well-worn copy right here.
5.4.7. Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. I don't even know if I should ask this, but Jan asked, when you talk about quality, what definition do you use for quality?
Ooh, that's a good question. I was trained by Dr. Joseph Duran. Okay, I actually sat in his class in 1982.
Wow.
And he had a definition of quality, and I can't remember exactly, but it's fit for use, basically. So your product basically meets the user's needs. That's a quality product. So I jump on that one anytime that, Dr. Duran was the guru that I followed in quality.
I always think about quality as the creation of certainty. So certainty in that your product will meet safety and efficacy. It's all the things you do to be sure that your product is safe and effective. Processes, SOPs, and also the culture of your company.
Yeah, it'd be interesting somebody go to the Cambridge Dictionary and tell me how many definitions for the word quality exist, because there's more than one, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll make that a different webinar, but thank you both so much. On behalf of Greenlight Guru, thank you all for attending today's presentation. I know we're at time, so I want to just get this out before we stop recording. We have 20 seconds left. Those of you who have asked questions, we'll get those questions to our presenters. If you're interested in the recording and slides, keep an eye out for that recording. That should be coming in an email later today. Thank you all so much. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Take care.